A Michigan state senator is calling out President Donald Trump in a recent ad campaign over the still-shut Gordie Howe Bridge. The bridge connects Canada and the U.S. over the Detroit River, and it was set to open almost 2 weeks ago, but was abruptly postponed.
The Gordie Howe Bridge is finished, but Donald Trump won't open it because the billionaire family that owns the other bridge gave him $1 million. I'm Mallory McMorrow, and I've got one message for the president. Open this damn bridge. And you better believe I approve this message.
Invitations for a ribbon-cutting ceremony had already been sent. The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority had publicly confirmed a June 13th opening ceremony. Toll registration accounts were live. Highway 401, fast lanes on the Canadian side, had been cleared of barriers. U.S. Customs officers were stationed and trained on the American side. Then, on June 11th, 2026, 2 days before the ceremony, the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority posted a notice that the opening had been postponed. No date given. No technical deficiency cited. No safety concern documented. Canada's Prime Minister confirmed at a Toronto press conference that the delay came at the request of the United States. And what that request was actually about has now been reported in detail. The Gordie Howe International Bridge cost 4.7 billion Canadian dollars to build. Canada paid all of it. Not a dollar of the $4.7 billion came from the U.S. federal government or the state of Michigan. Under the 2012 agreement signed between the Canadian federal government and then Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, a Republican Michigan received joint ownership of the bridge structure without contributing any upfront capital. Canada will recover its construction investment through toll revenues over an estimated 30 to 70 years. After Canada's investment is fully recovered, toll revenues will split equally between Canada and Michigan. Michigan Speaker Matt Hall acknowledged directly, on the record, that Michigan has only nominal ownership rights, no property rights, and no current revenue rights until Canada's construction costs are repaid. The specific American demand driving the delay was reported by the Globe and Mail. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekstra are pushing to negotiate a deal protecting the Maroon family, the billionaire private owners of the Ambassador Bridge before the Gordie Howe, allowed to open. The Ambassador Bridge is a 97-year-old privately owned crossing operated by the Maroon family business that currently generates an estimated $60 to $70 million annually in toll revenue. The Gordie Howe Bridge, with 6 lanes versus the Ambassador's 4, and commercial toll rates of approximately $12 per axle versus the Ambassador's $20 to $28 per axle, will directly compete with the Ambassador for commercial truck crossings once it opens. The New York Times reported the documented sequence. The Maroon family donated $1 million to a Trump-aligned political action committee. A member of the Maroon family then secured an in-person meeting with Lutnick. That same day, Lutnick called Trump. Hours after the call, Trump posted on Truth Social attacking the Gordie Howe project and demanding that Canada be subject to new conditions before the bridge could open. Trump had previously supported the bridge project during his first term. The post-donation sequence produced a reversal of that position. Lutnick and Hoekstra learned about the planned June 13th ribbon cutting from media reports they were not informed through diplomatic channels or by the Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority. The Detroit News reported that Hoekstra told reporters lots of people objected because they were caught off guard. That statement describes the internal administrative reality. 2 senior American officials responsible for bridge negotiations with Canada found out about the opening from news coverage rather than from the White House or from Canadian officials, and used their objection to the process to demand a delay. The planned ceremony had itself emerged from a phone call between Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, and Trump's Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. Whitmer believed, following that conversation, that the White House had given clearance for the opening. Invitations went out. The date was set. But Lutnick and Hoekstra were not in the loop. And their objection, combined with Lutnick's direct access to Trump through a subsequent phone call, was sufficient to override what Whitmer understood as administration clearance. At the request of the United States, we agreed to delay the opening and take the necessary time to resolve outstanding issues, a few issues that had been raised, Carney said at the Toronto press conference. He described a series of technical aspects without elaborating. He maintained his consistent framing. There's not great drama here. He confirmed Canada did not delay the opening voluntarily. It was delayed at American request. That distinction matters for understanding where the leverage actually sits in this negotiation. Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens has been the most direct public voice on what Canada's position should be. Although we would all like the Gordie Howe Bridge to open, Canada need not fall on bent knee to make it happen, Dilkens wrote on social media following the cancellation. The mayor of the Canadian city that stands to gain most from the bridge opening in commercial traffic, job creation, and infrastructure modernity is publicly telling the federal government not to make concessions. The commercial stakes of the delay compound daily. The Ambassador Bridge charges commercial trucks between $100 and $140 per crossing at its current toll rates. The Gordie Howe Bridge's commercial rate is set at approximately $12 per axle, roughly $60 per truck for a standard 5-axle configuration. A University of Windsor study projected the Gordie Howe would save commercial truckers $2.3 billion over 30 years compared to the Ambassador. Every day the Gordie Howe remains closed is a day the Ambassador Bridge's commercial monopoly continues without competition, and a day that $2.3 billion in projected savings cannot begin accumulating for the American and Canadian businesses whose supply chains cross that river daily. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen had already told the Senate Appropriations Committee weeks before the delay that his department was fully staffed, prepared, and ready to process traffic, waiting only for sign-off from negotiations that were not within DHS to resolve. The bridge passed every technical and operational test. The customs staff are ready. The highway connections are open. The toll system is live. The only obstacle is a political negotiation over what financial arrangement the administration's officials want to secure for the Maroon family before allowing a Canadian-financed, binationally owned bridge to begin operating on the terms both governments agreed to in 2012. The House Democrats in Washington formally requested an investigation into the sequence of events connecting the Maroon donation, the Lutnick meeting, the Trump phone call, and the subsequent policy reversal on the bridge. That investigation is now part of the public record surrounding the delay. The bridge remains closed. The opening date is not announced. The 2012 agreement that Canada points to as the governing legal framework for the project has not been modified. And the $4.7 billion structure built with Canadian money, co-owned by Michigan under a contract that gave Michigan ownership without capital contribution, sits physically complete and operationally ready on the Detroit River, waiting for a political negotiation that nobody involved has publicly specified the terms of. The Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia recorded over 531,000 commercial truck crossings in the first quarter of 2026, compared to 496,000 at the Ambassador Bridge in Detroit, making it the busiest commercial crossing in North America for the first time in the Ambassador's history. That shift happened entirely because of the Ambassador's toll premium. Commercial truckers are already routing around the Ambassador to avoid paying $100 to $140 per crossing. When the Gordie Howe opens at $60 per crossing with direct highway access on both sides, the commercial traffic mathematics become even more decisive. The Moran family's revenue problem is not hypothetical. It has already begun.